Okay, so I know I just released my definitive Evolution of Kenny video a few weeks ago, and I'm still really proud of how that turned out, but I also sort of just brushed over the Black Friday trilogy and all of the Princess Kenny storyline, chalking it up to escapism. And while I do still think that it's escapism, I actually got a really great comment from YouTube user seachantie with their take on the escapism of Princess Kenny, and I loved it so much it made me want to revisit the entire Black Friday trilogy and Stick of Truth with these ideas in mind, and do a little supplementary Princess Kenny analysis to go alongside my bigger Kenny video. So that's what this is. Join me as we explore the escapism of Princess Kenny. But first, let's talk about today's video sponsor, Babbel. I obviously speak English, I learned Spanish in high school, but I've always wanted to venture into learning other languages as I get older, especially as I look to travel more and broaden my horizon. And one of the places I've always wanted to visit is Italy, the land of my ancestors. So I've been doing lessons with Babbel to help get me started on my Italian journey. But what's most impressive about Babbel is how they teach you, not just lessons, but through podcasts, games, videos, all to help cater to people with different learning styles.
Ciao, Valeria. Amar, ciao.
Babbel provides real-world, practical conversation skills specifically based on what you need in your language journey. The lessons are really quick, as short as 10 minutes apiece, so they can easily be integrated into even the busiest schedules. This award-winning tech is proven to get people speaking a new language in just 3 weeks. If you sign up with the link in the description or scan the QR code here, you can get 60% off on your subscription to Babbel. Once again, just use the link in the description or this QR code to get 60% off your subscription so that you can begin your language journey today. So as a quick recap for my previous Kenny video, the primary arc for Kenny in South Park has lots to do with his role as a protector. Kenny comes from a poor, broken family, and his lower class struggles defined how he was treated for much of his childhood. On top of this, Kenny is cursed with immortality, dying countless times over and over, experiencing every single one, and suffering through the reality that his friends don't remember any of it. As a response to this, Kenny developed an incredibly selfless persona, helping his friends and protecting others in dangerous situations. And this further evolved as he developed the Mysterion persona, a literal superhero alter ego devoted to protecting others. And this all makes a lot of sense. Kenny's rough childhood and immortality curse has to lead to some massive trauma in his life. And creating an outlet to counteract and fight against that kind of trauma perpetuating is one of Kenny's coping mechanisms. But Kenny has another coping mechanism. It's escapism. We see it firsthand in the episode Major Boobage when he gets addicted to cheesing and hallucinates his entire life away. That's a pretty obvious case of escapism, quite literally hallucinating an entirely new reality. But Kenny's escapism into the Princess Kenny role seems to have a direct correlation to that aforementioned protector role that he's foisted upon himself. I mentioned earlier that user seachantie commented some great analysis that I'm going to use for this video, and here's a little bit of what they said. Yes, Princess Kenny is escapism, but more importantly, she is a completely opposite position from Mysterion. Princesses are meant to be doted on and protected, cared for, catered to, and so in a way, being a princess would be a form of relief for him, because for once, he isn't sacrificing anything or having to shield anyone from harm. And this seems to be exactly what Kenny wants in the entire Black Friday trilogy. One of the issues I had with figuring out Princess Kenny's persona was how it aligns or doesn't align with some of his other behaviors. But that actually seems to be exactly the point. Kenny is normally incredibly kind, protective, and self-sacrificing, nearly to a fault. And through the Black Friday trilogy, we see how Kenny's embracing of the princess role is basically counter to all of those things. As they generally do when they play fantasy games, like in Return of the Fellowship to the Two Towers, they treat the kids and their characters as separate entities. This is also true of Princess Kenny, though Cartman refers to her as Lady McCormick.
I need to speak with Lady McCormick.
So the big conflict in this trilogy has to do with Cartman's plan to secure next-gen video game consoles through an 80% off clause for the first people to get into the mall on Black Friday. However, the problem is that half of the kids want the Xbox One and the other half want the PlayStation 4. Initially, Lady McCormick sides with Cartman and Kyle to secure Xbox Ones, but Cartman tells Kenny that they may have to turn on Kyle if things change.
All I'm saying is that when the time comes, I might need you to use that influence to have Kyle taken care of.
But instead, the end of the episode reveals that rather than go along with Cartman's plan, Princess Kenny changes sides entirely, joining Stan and the PlayStation 4 clan, completely reinvigorating and fortifying their forces, effectively becoming their new leader and being treated like royalty. And these moves are all so counter to Kenny's usual MO. Princess Kenny entirely betrayed the team she had allegiance to, despite typically being incredibly loyal, and Princess Kenny basically takes up a role in which people serve her, rather than vice versa, as we usually see with Kenny. Obviously, this is mostly a parody of Daenerys in Game of Thrones, but I still think they make it work for Kenny here, because the opening of the following episode, A Song of Ass and Fire, reveals exactly why she betrayed Cartman.
Once a common lady of the Dark Army, but denied my right to be called princess by birth, I betrayed my kind.
Cartman refused to let Kenny actually embrace the role of princess, the role that would fully let him fall into that escapism. And so, she changed sides to fully embrace the role of princess, to be doted on and cared for, to not have to be the protector, to be protected herself. And Cartman is incredibly upset by Kenny's betrayal.
We are not going to be beat by that traitor whore Kenny.
I think Cartman's immense frustrations and his fear over Princess Kenny turning the tides for the PlayStation kids has a lot to do with their shared history, particularly when you look at the Coon and Mysterion stuff. Kenny has always acted as Cartman's foil in the superhero episodes, basically spoiling his entire plan in the original Coon episode and stealing the spotlight, and then of course kicking him out of Coon and Friends and taking over the team in the trilogy. Cartman also sees Kenny as his best friend, so it makes sense that he would be so frustrated and fearful over this betrayal. But of course, one of Cartman's biggest downfalls is his stubbornness. He eventually takes his army to Princess Kenny's kingdom to try and lure them back to their side, obviously because he's worried that they won't manage to secure their Xboxes without the other team's help. But more foolishly, Cartman insults and patronizes Kenny by still refusing to acknowledge her role as princess in the game.
Kenny, we all understand wanting to play as the chick once in a while, okay? But you are never going to be a real princess.
The entire reason that Princess Kenny swaps sides is because Cartman wouldn't let her be the princess, and despite coming to her asking for help, he still won't acknowledge her that way. But because Kenny was steadfast in her support for the PlayStation, she's rewarded. The president of Sony makes her a literal princess.
He offers you this gift to once and for all make you an official princess, and to give you the powers you need to win this war on Black Friday.
Despite Cartman claiming he'll never be a real princess, Princess Kenny is now rewarded with the ability to fully embrace the escapism that she desired all along.
Wow, Kenny's a Japanese princess.
And what I love most about the official Japanese Princess Kenny is that her powers really amount to the influence she holds from being super cute. Matt and Trey talked about this decision on the DVD commentary, that they initially wanted to give Kenny some real powers.
And it wasn't until we started episode 3 that we're like, oh no, he shouldn't have any powers, he's just cute.
And this, in my mind, is not only funnier, but it once again adds to that sense of escapism that Kenny experiences through this role as Princess Kenny. While Kenny is generally well liked, in the early days of South Park, he was super overlooked. He was basically a punchline, getting killed constantly, his friends not remembering that he died, and so having one of these Princess Kenny superpowers literally be to completely and influentially win people over through simply being cute is the perfect counter to his earlier role. Princess Kenny is impossible to overlook. She can literally control what other people do and think just by being adorable.
He flew down in a parachute and he what? Apparently he stopped Microsoft from blockading the shipment of PS4s to the wall.
So this type of superpower, where Kenny cannot be overlooked, and in fact thrives through the ability to be the center of attention, adds a really great layer to that escapism. Complete opposite of Kenny's normal role as unsung hero, the self-sacrificing, selfless protector who doesn't get any of the credit he's owed. And the thing that gets Princess Kenny to finally come back home to South Park from Japan is getting that acceptance from Cartman.
Our two houses have found peace. Come to the Red Robin wedding, and we will all accept you as the princess you are. Yours truly, the Wizard King.
Though this ultimately does end up being a ruse, as Cartman's entire plan was to lock all of the PlayStation kids in the Red Robin so that they can secure their Xboxes more easily. But the important thing is Kenny's desires here, being accepted by one of his best friends in the role of princess. But in another twist, Kenny, with the help of Kyle, betrays Cartman once again during the Red Robin wedding. And that never-ending back and forth of betrayal, while obviously Game of Thrones inspired, is another piece of the Princess Kenny escapism puzzle. Kenny, as as a friend or as Mysterion, would never betray the people he cared about. In the South Park movie, he gave his life to save his friends. There are countless examples of Kenny throughout the entire history of the show doing the right thing through loyalty and love. But as Princess Kenny, it's all about Kenny, getting showered in love and attention, being doted on, being cared for, and betraying whoever she wants, when she wants, to get what she wants. Which is why the big finale of the South Park game, The Stick of Truth, also works so well with what we know about Princess Kenny. I actually got a lot of upset comments on my Stick of Truth video about how Kenny's betrayal at the end of the game is so out of character. And you know what? They're not wrong, but I think you have to take two things into account for that betrayal. One, that the first story-based South Park game really wanted to embrace South Park's history in its big finale by making you do one of the most iconic things that the show is known for, killing Kenny. But two, it fits much more when you take into account Kenny's role as Princess Kenny and how that persona is basically the antithesis of everything Kenny is known for, all in the name of escapism. Kenny would never betray all of his friends and fight them, Mysterion would never turn on the people he loved most, but as a coping mechanism for all of the trauma he endured, Kenny created a persona who doesn't have to take on the burdens that he's known for. A character who can be cared for and can do whatever selfish thing they want. Look, I can't say for sure that this is what Matt and Trey intended with Princess Kenny, but when you look at the character's entire history and the role he's taken on throughout South Park, it makes a ton of sense. And I think that it's all a testament to who Kenny really is and what he's endured. It's hard to imagine the kind of trauma that Kenny has experienced, the kind of pressure he's felt in his life, and so it's hard to blame him for escaping into a completely separate entity, one that doesn't have to think about the kinds of hardships and struggles that Kenny has faced. And that is why I love Princess Kenny. Thanks so much to user seachantie for the comment that inspired this video. You should go check out her channel. She actually does her own animations and they're really cool. And I want to hear what you have to say about Princess Kenny. Do you think this level of escapism makes sense for the character? Let me know below in the comments, and thanks for watching yet another Kenny video. I'm pretty sure this is the last one. Peace.
Johnny! Two cellos!